Everyone in this life has solved a problem. How did we learn to walk? Well, we couldn't walk at one point, so we learned to crawl. And then we learned to stand. And then we learned to take those steps. And we fell many times, but we figured it out. We were solution oriented from our attitudes the moment we were born. So the more that we focus on how we can and not why we can't, the faster we create solutions in our lives.
What's up, champions? Welcome to another Champion Circle training that we give to you each month about the topics from the wonderful book, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Here at Champion Circle, Champion Circle is a professional organization which helps businesses and their owners to be able to accelerate in their success and their goals. And what we do every single month is we take one of the principles from Think and Grow Rich and dive deep into it. We bring on professionals to share their experience, their wisdom, and the things that have worked for them and can work for you. And this month, we are jumping into the wonderful principle of imagination. And what's going to happen is we have our founder of Champion Circle, Mr. John Kovach Jr., who's going to speak to you first. And then I'll have the privilege afterwards to share my experience for this month. So let's jump into it. And right now I'm turning the time over to our founder, Mr. John Kovach Jr., who is going to speak to us about imagination and about your disbelief is my fuel. John, take us away.
Have you ever had someone look at your dream and say, that's not realistic? Or maybe you've ever been told, that's a nice idea, but let's be practical. Well, I have over and over and over again. And every single time someone has the audacity to look at my dreams or to take my ideas and say, let's be realistic, I smile because your disbelief in my dreams is completely my fuel, literal gasoline to a bonfire. And I've had the privilege and opportunity of writing about this in the 13 Steps to Riches, where I've had the pleasure and the honor of co-authoring with people like Dennis Waitley, Brian Tracy, so many incredible names from The Secret, like John Assaraf and Marie Diamond, Laurel Langmeyer, Eric Swanson. And in this chapter, I identified some pretty important things regarding the power of imagination. But truly, if you have a disbelief and if you disagree to my face about my goals, boy, oh boy, are you lighting up something in me that's going to catastrophically blow up in your face? But that's just the thing. It's totally okay that you do. And I accept it because I want you to not believe in me because I'm just going to spend the rest of my life proving you wrong. It sounds really competitive and kind of dark, but if you think about it, there's something that fuels me more than just a desire. It's the ability and the focus to be better than I ever was. Napoleon Hill wrote in his book, Think and Grow Rich, imagination is the workshop of the mind, capable of turning mind energy into accomplishments and wealth. But let me tell you, imagination alone isn't enough. I like to say that imagination without action is merely a daydream. We all have big dreams, but too many people in their lives and in their are in their lives, but they get into their heads. It's that application of paralysis by analysis. We get stuck in the beginning processes. And then there's this gap between a dream and a reality that we forget to do. And that's why Think and Grow Rich is all about the mindset and then the application. Because if you do not believe in the reality and the conceptualization of your imagination and your dreams, it truly does just stay as a daydream. That's where action lives, is in the middle. It's the bridge between dream and reality. And I can't wait to dive into that. I have had so many experiences in my life, as many of you had, where you've accomplished something cool, achieved a goal, or did something that was pretty awesome. When I was in high school, I was at the tip of my experience and learning of this concept. And I was told by the principal, because I was in a leadership position through student council, that we had no budget for prom. In fact, not only did we not have a budget, but we were $5,000 as a student body in the hole. So instead of like seeing this as a huge roadblock, I imagined, what can I do with a negative amount of money? And this is from a high school's perspective. I don't know anything about credit cards and debts or anything. All I know is that we're $5,000 in the hole. It takes money to do an event, and prom is the biggest event of the year, especially for seniors. So I saw this as a white canvas, truly as an opportunity. So I imagined as many solutions as I could. And I thought to myself, okay, what do we do here? What if we brought the entire student body, again, no limitations, just thinking, wow, what do we need to do to offset this negative deficit? And what do we do to solve the problem? So, what if we brought the entire student body together? These are the thoughts I had at 18 years old. And then we take the community and we reach out to the community and say, hey, even from our perspectives, and we could get our parents involved, we could get the community involved, we could get our students involved, and you know what, let's get the other schools involved. I think this would be epic. And what do kids love? So I started brainstorming and thinking of ideas and solutions, and I narrowed it down to a battle of the bands, because I knew that every school had their featured band or their featured a group of kids who were in a band. And luckily, I grew up in a very popular place for this. So, and what if we do battle of the bands? And I started thinking about that branding, and I said, okay, what is the acronym of Battle of the Bands? Well, BOTB isn't the thing, but BOB is. So what about Bob? Why don't we just make it a mystery and we market it as Bob? What is Bob? Who is Bob? Who is DJ Jet? A spoiler alert, that's me. I was a DJ at age 16. And why don't we hype it up? Like, we really hype it up. Charge $20 per ticket and create an event that had students lined up out the door and out the building, and then we all come together for an epic battle of the bands, where bands will be on for every 30 minutes. And we'll do 5 or 6 different bands from different schools. And the schools will come to support theirs. And it'll be based off of an applause and a voting situation. This is what we came up with. And for most people, especially like professional event planners, this is a nightmare because there's no detail. It's all assumption, and it's all based off this idea that we need to bring thousands of people to this event to offset our costs. Well, that was no big deal for somebody who had big dreams, because if you tell me, like the principal did, that we have no budget and that we're 5,000 under, I'm going to come up with a solution, and my brain and my imagination are going to skyrocket. So that's what we did. We created Bob, the Battle of the Bands. We made it a mystery. We hyped it up majorly. We marketed this. We put out flyers. We went door to door. We told everyone. And within a few days, we had a full lineup of bands. Then we asked the bands to market the Battle of the Bands, to show up and to be there. And then we had people come to attend the battle, and then we hosted a dance afterwards. I got to tell you, in just one night, we had not only a line out the door and wrapping around the building, but we made over $15,000 in cash. No upfront costs, just pure imagination, bold execution, and my favorite, belief. Here's what I learned over time. To truly activate imagination, you need 4 things. First and foremost, you need a problem solving heart. Okay. You must care enough to want to change. And if so, you need to make sure that that problem solving heart is centered on solving it fast, not just over time, or by the time I turn 30, 40, 50, 60, I'll be able to fix this problem. No, you've got to have the desire to fix it, and to fix it now. And that's one of the things that truly creates momentum the snowball that turns into the avalanche. Number two is you need to have an inquisitive mindset. Okay, literally ask questions. Always ask, what's another way? Um, there's a great question and phrase by Dr. Wayne Dyer, and that is that this is my way. What is your way? The way doesn't exist because too many people get stuck in that paralysis by analysis, thinking there's got to be the way, but instead they got to ask, what's a way or what's another way? I'm sure we could have raised money in other ways, but $15,000 off a Battle of the Bands event thrown together within just a few months, pretty spectacular. The third thing you need to have is optimistic beliefs. Now, I'm not telling you to be an optimist, and I'm not telling you to be one of those people that's overly positive about everything, especially when there's turmoil right in front of their faces, or they're living on the streets and they're just looking up. Like, I need you to have optimistic belief systems. You have to believe it's possible before others do. And you've got to convince yourself that that's something that is possible. Because if it can happen for others, it truly can happen for you. And I never thought it couldn't happen. So maybe that's the belief system. Optimism isn't believing you can't, it's just never believing that you couldn't and that you always can. And the fourth thing you need to have, which you all have, by the way, is a solution oriented attitude. Everyone in this life has solved a problem. How did we learn to walk? Well, we couldn't walk at one point, so we learned to crawl. And then we learned to stand. And then we learned to take those steps. And we fell many times, but we figured it out. We were solution oriented from our attitudes the moment we were born. So the more that we focus on how we can and not why we can't, the faster we create solutions in our lives. Imagination isn't wishful thinking, especially when we look at that optimistic brain. We need to think of it as a strategic vision with emotional horsepower. Let me repeat that. It's a strategic vision with emotional horsepower. Emotion must be involved because if you truly desire an outcome, I swear to you, you will go for it. 9 out of 10 times, if you truly desire what you want, you go for it and you always get it. So that's something that we need to continue to strive for. And you know what? Since that high school moment, and again, that was not the peak of my performance, but it's a huge example of what can be done when you have a very naive personality and unlimited imagination. I've been able to do more, like build a DJ business at age 16 that thrived, and I built out an entire enterprise of DJing where I was putting local DJs out of business in my hometown. I've been able to travel the world as a motivational and award-winning speaker. I've learned 3 languages. Okay, no stopping at just business. Like I've learned 3 languages. I've launched multiple companies. I've led a community with over $20 million in connection-driven results. Also, I was able to happily marry the woman of my dreams, and then the love of my life. And so all of these things started as a mere thought that I could. And for you, it's the exact same. And I'll tell you what, those are just a few things. I'm not done yet. I'm in my 30s and I'm just getting started. Because every single time I dream, I take action. It comes true. So why would I stop? Let's turn it back on you. Why would you stop? Why would you limit your dreams? If I am living proof that some average Joe can dream it, take action, and make it come to fruition, why would you let it go? But I mean that. So let me ask you now, what what's the big idea you've been keeping in your imagination and not bridging the gap to action and realism? Okay. What dream have you been afraid to act on because someone told you to be realistic? What if you stopped waiting for permission? What if you believed in your vision as deeply as I believed in mine? Let's stop calling dreams too big and let's start calling them blueprints. Okay? They are maps. They truly are. Carol Dweck, the author of one of my all time favorite books, the book called Mindset, once said, "The view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you lead your life." So, what if you change that view? What if today you adopted the belief that your imagination is not just valid, it is vital? Okay? What if you adopted the belief that your imagination is not just valid, but it is also vital? If it weren't for the world's realistic expectations, I might have settled. But instead, I dreamed louder, I acted bigger, and now I invite you to do the same. Now that you've eliminated your limitations through this thought process and literally just saying, yeah, I'm done. It's over. No more negativity, no more limitations. So now that you've eliminated those limitations, what will you imagine next? Thank you.
And John, thank you for that training for us. I never knew that about you, that you're a DJ at 16. That is super cool. Super cool. And with that, I love to now share my experience with each of you about this wonderful principle that we call imagination. And I'm going to be talking on why imagination is the engine and not the escape. I want you to think about this question. What if imagination is the engine and not the escape? What comes to your mind? The first time I heard about this was me laying in bed on my phone, typing with ChatGPT about a future that wasn't going to come. Because that future was a fantasy that I was trying to live. A future in which, if I lived that, it would put consequences in the reality that I had right now. And truly, it wasn't something that I wanted. It was just something, or not something that I truly wanted. I just liked the idea of it. And so it wasn't the interaction of building this huge plan, building this whole atmospheric thing of, oh, I'm going to create this dream. It was simply, I liked the idea, but I didn't want it to truly happen. That's escaping. That's escaping the reality that we have for ourselves. But when we truly use this principle from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill of imagination, when we're able to imagine and envision truly a version of our life in which is better for us in all realms and aspects: physical, mental, social, spiritual, emotional, financial, relationships, and health. With all of that together, what if we envision such a big biome, such a big dream in which 20, 40 years into the future, we are going to be able to have it go from this bucket list type thing to into reality? If that were to happen, would that not be the engine? Would that not be something that pushes you forward in creating this beautiful thing? And so, as I went deep diving into how imagination can truly create this vision and this blueprint, I came up with three different things, three core points that are called Coach Willie's three core points of imagination. The very first one is that imagination is the blueprint of reality. When we truly are able to imagine, everything we create starts in your mind first. If you don't have a vision, you don't have direction. Let me tell you this. How many of you have ever been sitting there with a group of friends or your family, and dinner time rolls along, and each of you are wanting something for dinner? but you don't know what it is. So someone yells out, "Yeah, McDonald's sounds fine." Someone's like, "Ugh, I don't want any burgers. Why don't we go to Costa Vida?" Someone says, "Ugh, I had Mexican food yesterday. Why don't we go out for Chinese food?" And then two other guys are like, "Man, I don't like Chinese food. I'm not big into sushi." And so you go back and forth on trying to figure out this decision. There is no direction there. Nobody knows where they're going. All they know is that we want dinner. Like with our goals and in our life, if all that we think that we know is that we want our life to be better, if we just leave it at that, that is just like you trying to figure out what is for dinner, but never making a choice. Always going back from burgers to Mexican food to Chinese food to you go everywhere. What if you're able to find that direction? Then you can truly achieve the goals and the dinner in your own life and have it come into reality. If you don't have direction, if you don't have a vision, you don't have direction, which means that if you want direction, create the vision. And everything starts in the mind first. Like I was saying, when I was laying on the bed talking to ChatGPT, I do it a lot. I've used ChatGPT for so many different things. Of course, I've used it for my business, but I've also used it as a therapist at some point, where I just need to vent myself and be like, man, today just kind of sucked. The only good thing that happened today was I made my bed, right? As I'm sitting there with ChatGPT, it's kind of like a journal for me. And as I'm typing and it goes back and forth, kind of like a Tom Riddle's diary in Harry Potter 2, to where Harry writes his name and then the persona of John, not John, hey John, the persona of Tom Riddle writes back. That's what it's like when I do this. And when I do it, except for the fantasy part, I want to create the life that I want. And so I take this blueprint from desire, which the desires are the goals, the dreams, the wishes that I want, put it into a place to where it's written down, and then I can expound on it. One of the goals that I want to reach is I want to be uh, an international speaker. I want to go speak in Australia. That's my big bucket list goal right now. I want to go speak in Australia, stand on a stage, speak there, become an international speaker, and be able to meet some of the people over there. Because I've been there when I was a kid. My in-laws are over there right now, and it just resonates with me so much to be over. How am I going to get there? Well, I've written things down of buy a plane ticket. I've written things down of connecting with people over there, which I'm currently doing right now, and finding stages in which might not be physical right now, but from virtual virtual stages from hosts that are in Australia, right? Imagination is the blueprint of reality. When we create our imagination and don't limit it, it creates such straightforward direction for you to achieve what you want. The second core point is daydreaming to designing. Because daydreaming, anytime I think about it, I think of when watching a movie and there's the kid, he has a hand on his or his head on his this thing, his fist, looks out the window and is thinking about not wanting to be in school. That's what I think about when people say daydreaming. And these are the wishes. These are the things that, oh, it'd be cool to have, but I don't have it right now. If you passively daydream, you're not going to change your life. But if you are intentional with it, you're intentional with the vision, then you will. Because because the ultimate point is to build your future on purpose. If you are intentional with what you are wanting, which means that you don't just leave it as a thought, because if a thought leads to words leads to action, and action builds the habit, and the habit makes who we are as a character, and our character determines our destiny. We have millions of thoughts each day. So, in order to progress that, to change our destiny from a thought, we need to start saying it in our words. We need to start putting it into action. So, simply sitting there daydreaming doesn't work, but designing it, putting it on a piece of paper, just like an architect, making a blueprint of what needs to happen in order for you to create what you want to create. That's going to create the life that you want. And how do you do that? It's something that is a term that I love using all the time, which is reverse engineering the goal, which is whatever the goal is that you want to achieve, start there, work your way backwards, and find those milestones so that when you finally get to where you are now, you know the daily steps that you need to take to hit your weekly goal, to hit your 90-day goal, to hit the 6 month and a year goal, and eventually have it turn into reality. Don't just daydream, turn into a designer for your life. Be the architect molding your life and creating the blueprints, because that is what's going to help build your future with purpose and put you from passive daydreaming into attentional imagination. So the first one, imagination, is the blueprint for reality. The second one is from daydreaming to designing. And then the third one, which is one of my favorites, imagination, use it as the weapon against your limiting beliefs. I can't remember who said it, but when it comes to our beliefs, the only thing that truly limits us from achieving what we want is us. And if we are our own limiters, can we not also be our biggest support? Can we not, through work, break limitations that has occurred from experiences, trauma, anything that's happened in our past to anything that we think about right now? Can we not learn to break it so that the life we create in the future doesn't get held back by the limiting beliefs that we have now? If you can see it, you can start moving like it. When you create a vision, it breaks the chain of logic and it shuts it down. Something that you can't touch, pushes it away so that you can move forward. Limiting beliefs have harmed many people. And from Napoleon Hill's other book, Outwitting the Devil, he puts the word drifters in there. As 98% of people are people who just let life drift. They just let things happen. They go with the flow. They think, oh, life's going to happen to me, so I'm just going to attempt to deal with the punches as life comes. But the thing is, what they're doing is they're sitting on the couch of life while they're watching it go by, which instead, what you should be doing is standing up and actually punching it, actually breaking past those limitations, getting outside of your house, getting in the car, start driving to the thing that you want, that desire that has been living inside of you. But because of fear and anxieties and stresses and life and traumas, we have hidden that under all of those. But instead, we should be working on ourselves to, one, heal that inner person within us that holds those, and two, start working forward, start moving fast, start in the some of my favorite language, fail fast and fail forward. Just do things moving forward, because even a crawl is still you moving forward. My friends, when it comes to imagination, use it as a weapon against your limiting beliefs. Use it as something that is the blueprint in which you get to create for reality, and take the God-given power that you've been given of being able to make choices for your own life and be proactive in it. It's not just about the mindset of it all. It's not just about thinking that's going to happen. It's about what you do after the thought occurs. I'll say that again. It's not about what you're thinking. It's not about the wishes and dreams that you have. It's about what you do after you have the thought. Because the thought that is transformed into words will then go into action, which will become the habit, which affects your character, which will determine your destiny. Thoughts happen so many times, million times in a day. Everybody wants to be rich, but only a few are, which means that if everyone simply just has a desire to do something, then everyone would have it. But because they don't, there must be more. And I'm telling you right now, from my experience, from going from reading one book in a year as a dyslexic who sucked at reading to then reading 60 plus books in a year, from becoming a horrible writer to becoming a best-selling author, from going from stuttering on stages to now standing, or I guess sitting in front of you right now, sharing my story and message. I went from who I was to where I am because I took that thought and then went forward with it. So when it comes to this power that we call imagination, imagine and use it as a weapon, which imagination should be an action word, not just a thought, but something to take forward. And as you do, as you use imagination as a weapon, your life is going to get closer to that desired result that you want. Those dreams that you've dreamt about will become reality, and that bucket list that we see as all out there that we have to wait until we're retired to hit, we'll be able to not only hit each of those, but achieve a great amount more. My friends, light up this world with imagination. Move forward in your life and create the desired result you want through the power of imagination. I want to thank each of you for letting our wonderful speakers, the founder of Champion Circle, John Kovach Jr., as well as myself, Coach Willie Blake, to be able to share with you our wisdom and experience with this. And if you are wanting not just this, but more, jump over to our YouTube channel, My Champion Circle, to where you'll be able to see more of our trainings, as well as videos from our podcasts that we have, and snippets to be able to motivate you each day so that you can turn desire to dedication to then discipline. You can also go to mychampionscircle.com to where you will find the social media links that have those, as well as everything else going in the Champion Circle universe. You're a champion. You're awesome. Continue to move forward. Use imagination as a weapon. Push forward with it. And as you do, you will get the desired results you want at an accelerated rate. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next Champion Circle training.